So, now I know this from, just knowing you for a long time, but when did you really decide to go into business for yourself versus working for somebody else or working a regular job or, something like that?
Um, Tough question because I mean, I always had entrepreneurial spirit, which I think is probably what you're referring to.
Yes.
But even even in you having that entrepreneurial spirit, that hustle, that doesn't change that I didn't say I would never work for somebody else though. You know what I mean? That was never the thing necessarily. It was always more so just I was too young. Like I think growing up, in the city that we grew up in and being from where we're from and looking the way that we look, you end up in a situation sometimes where your situation doesn't necessarily provide definitely not all of your wants and then definitely in some cases not even your needs. And when that starts to happen, it creates a need for you to be able to go out and produce revenue at a very young age. And when you start doing certain things so young, you're not even old enough to go about it, necessarily the legal way or the right way or whatever the case may be. And that creates an interesting dynamic. So I think some people may start off hustling because they're just so young, too young to get some regular job. I mean, that was also back then, as opposed to speaking to a young person that's coming up today with all of this technology and all of these different opportunities. I wouldn't say that a young person today has the same um, or has the limited amount of opportunities that we had growing up at a certain age to be able to monetize our talents or even our interests.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that's true. Coming up in the 90s and in the early 2000s is definitely a different ball game than today for sure. Um so I guess my next question would be then, when do you feel like, or what was the moment that you felt like what you were doing was working as far as on the entrepreneurial side, when you were investing in yourself and creating your own businesses? When did you realize, like, okay, this is sustainable and I can actually make a living doing this?
I mean, there were multiple points in the journey where you reach either a new level of success or you're able to launch something that was in your brain and you're able to see how people respond to it, because that's really what it's about. Where that confidence in yourself comes from, it comes in the market. It's not like if you're running around with a lot of untested bravado, it doesn't really hold water. It doesn't really last that long. A lot of the ego and some of that thing comes from success, and it comes from putting points on the board. So when you've had something that's in your brain, and you take that and you're able to get it in a packaged up product, or you're able to convert that into a service that you're able to deliver at a 5-star level, then that's when you have the confidence to know not only one, can I do it, I can do it again. I went through the entire process. You see what I'm saying? And
Hmm.
if I've gone through the entire process, I know what I would do differently to even make this easier and better. And I know how to even maybe get more out of it. So those are the things that give you confidence. For me personally, like I said, there were several different occasions in my journey where there were this guiding lights, I'll call them, that steered me, that let me know, hey, this is a safe place for you to go or to continue. And it may not always have been a monumental thing. It may have been small. It may have been uh, a particular producer inviting me to a studio where I was able to meet a bunch of cool people. It may have been a business opportunity that fell in my lap. It may have been a particular amount of money being in the bank account at a certain amount of time. So every different step of the way, you use what you need to use to move yourself forward. So, me looking back on it is hard because it's hard for me to pick one moment. In the moment though, I would have been able to tell you like, hey, this is one of those things that, this bought me another 6 months of energy. Because that's really what you're talking about. Now I could sit up here and be like, man, this was the day and everything changed. And yeah, there's plenty of days where everything changes. But if you live long enough, you'll know that things keep changing and they keep changing. And the thing about being an entrepreneur is you have to reinvest. You have to keep making that decision. It's not something that you make one day when you're 16 years old, you make the most money you ever did, and now I gotta just get out here and do whatever I gotta do. It doesn't work that way. You have to consistently make these decisions and reinvest in these spaces. You have to consistently show up for that to become the norm. It's not a one-off. So I think that when we talk about entrepreneurship, we need to talk about how many times have you re-upped to get to where you are? Because that's the perseverance that's required for you to be able to be successful as an entrepreneur. Is the perseverance.